When you click summary, it's going to take you to whatever your summary looks like. So if you have contacts in there, yours might look a little different than mine, or my listings, that kind of thing. But the thing we want to click is the settings button. So we go from my matrix to settings. And when we click on the settings, you'll see here you have a couple of different options. And we're going to focus on right there in the middle of the screen, custom displays. And if I'm going too fast or whatever, just raise your hand or put in the chat, slow down, or whatever the case may be. Because for those that want to try and do this while I'm doing it, I don't want to go too fast for you. Good here? The live people get a little bit of advantage over the Zoom people. So, all right, so we're going to click custom display. And what it'll do is, unless you have already gone in and created some custom displays, you are not going to probably have anything in this area here. And real quick, let me, I want to record this. Did you already start recording it?
Yes, I started recording it. You're good.
Thank you, Emily. You're one step ahead of me, as usual. So what you want to do then is you want to click the add button. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to give us an opportunity to add a custom display. And then looking at the cheat sheet that I provided you guys with. So we've done the first step here, and we've gone to my matrix. We've clicked summary, and it's gone to settings, which gets you here. And then once you click settings, you're going to click the custom display. So again, you can kind of see these are step-by-step instructions on how to create the custom display. Once you click the custom display, it'll open up, and you want to click add, which is there. And then once you've selected add, it will open the screen below, which is where we just were. And then in the display name, you can just call it, I call it stats. You can name it whatever you want to name it. Just, whatever you name it, you're going to have to remember it so we can go find it, or you can go find it later. Then we're going to click the add, and then you need to put these selections in the order that is listed below. Otherwise, when you see my spreadsheet that's going to pull up, your columns may not match up with my spreadsheet, and that's okay, but it just might make it a little more difficult to follow along if our columns are in different orders, because we're going to be going in and doing some basic calculations in the Excel spreadsheet and doing some sorting and things of that nature. So here are the criteria that you want to add to your custom display. So we're going to go back and we're going to click area, and you can just search it if you want. So we click area and add, and then we're going to go back, and we need listing office name, selling office name. And that's for if you want to kind of see if you're doing some kind of competitive analysis and you want to see, for example, how Harry Norman is performing against the rest of the market or a particular brokerage in terms of total days on market and things of that nature, which is why you would want to have that information in there. So the next thing you'll want to select is property condition. And I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go back and forth and do this just because I already have the criteria in there, but that's basically how you would do it. So if we wanted to do, again, listing office name and selling office name, then you can just use the search feature and get all that information, and you just click add, and then we would go to office, list office name. We already got that one. The search feature, if you look up on the screen there, it's just down there at the bottom. You see it at the bottom? Look up here on the screen. See right down here? Okay. So I'm just going to give everybody a second to just use your sheet. Here, you need to put all these things in there. So got list office name, selling office name, we'll just do this to give everybody for maybe at home who's doing this. Property condition, cost paid by seller. Costs paid by seller, obviously our selling, our closing contributions. Then we need days on market and close price. And once you do this, you'll never have to do it again because we're going to be saving this in here. So then we need listing contract date and list price. And then original list price and close price, original list price. And then square footage and status in case you wanted to do like a comparison of do a price per square foot analysis is why you might want to have square footage in there. The status is just so you can, if you're doing just a more than one search, you can sort it by the status. And then as you'll notice in your little cheat sheet, there's two columns because I couldn't get the screen capture for all the one thing. So don't forget to add standard status, MLS substatus, address. So we'll add those things. And then address, close date, and close price, list price. And again, you might want to have the address in there. If you're kind of doing something a little more specific, you can do it that way. And you might ultimately find that you want to add some additional categories, just depending on kind of what you're trying to search for. But once you get all this in there, so we have all those categories in there, and we're going to click, I'm going to call this stats 2 because I already have my stats 1, and we're going to click save. So now you'll see once you do that, you're going to have, you should have whatever you've named that in your options here. So I have a stats 1 now and a stats 2. And then we just click done. So before we move on, any questions about that? And again, we're just following along with the directions here. Again, click add. And then now the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you what to do when we're doing a property search. But real quick, any questions, either put them in the chat. Feel free to take yourself off of mute. I'm going to stop the share for a second so I can see those of you that are online. If you're got your video going and have a question, just raise your hand. Or
Todd, Janet asked, I clicked done before I needed to. How do I get back in? Would she
okay.
Edit?
So what you would do is go again back to the custom display, whatever you've called it there. So like if I wanted to go back in and let's say, oops, I forgot to add the things, just click it. And over here on the right-hand side, you have edit. If you go in, you can re-add the things that you want to have in there. And then you can also adjust it up or down. So if you skipped over something and you want to maintain the same order that I have here, I'm not sharing my screen. That would be helpful. So again, when we're in here, if you click stats 2 and you click edit, because stats 2 is the one I just created. Then you can just go back in and you can add or you can remove if you put the wrong thing in there. And then you can also adjust. If you click here, if I wanted to move the listing date office name up above area, I could click up, or if I wanted to move it down, I could click down. And again, the order there is only important if you really want to be able to truly follow along with what I'm going to be doing in the Excel spreadsheet that you'll be seeing based on my custom display. But if you followed the order of the sheet, the cheat sheet, you should be seeing exactly what I'm going to see when we import into Excel. Any other questions before we move on? And again, once you've done that once, you'll never have to do it again. It'll always be in there. And if you wanted to go in and add something or take something away, you would just do it by going in and doing, taking advantage of the edit option here in your manage custom displays. Okay, well, we're going to move on then. So the next thing we're going to do once we've done set up our custom display is we're going to do a regular search. And we will just start off with doing a sold search. And again, you have the ability, if you want to search for single family detached, you just select, I think it defaults to that. If you wanted to do attached, you would just change it up here. If you wanted to just do condos, you could select it, or you could leave it as in it'll search for condos and townhomes. But for what I typically do is look at single family detached. So I'm going to leave it as residential detached. And we're going to take a look at what's closed. And I'm just going to go back the last 90 days. So I'm clicking the closed 0 to 90. And I'm just going to look in area 21 because that happens to be where I'm sitting right now. So we're going to see in area 21, we see that we have 330 matches down here. So if you, again, want to follow along exactly with the criteria just to make sure that you're doing it correctly, feel free. So we're area 21, 330 results. And I'm not doing it by price. If we wanted to really hone in on price, we could do it here. So for example, if we wanted to see what's going on in the 500 to 700 range in Buckhead, we could do that, and we have 70 matches. So I'm going to just stick with that because it just makes it a little easier. I don't have to scroll down through 330 results for the spreadsheet, which will make this kind of go along a lot faster. So we're going to just take a look and see of the 70 homes that have sold in the last 90 days in area 21 between 5 and 700, what's been going on with that particular segment of the market. So I'm going to click results. Now you'll see that my results probably are a little different from yours because I've set it up as a default. But up here on the display, you have the option of doing agent single line, which if you do that, it's going to show you a completely different kind of looking landing area. But what you want to do is wherever yours is currently set into the display area, and hopefully everybody can kind of see where I'm moving my mouse, whatever that says, you want to go find whatever you named that custom display. And you'll see it's called My Stats 2. I'm just going to go to My Stats, and it's going to show everything that we basically selected in that custom display. And that's really the only results that we want, because again, if I go back and I look at the agent single line and I selected all these and did an export, it's going to basically bring in the entire FMLS, I guess, agent view. So it's going to bring in all that criteria, and we don't want all that. So you want to select whatever you call that custom display, and you'll see that that's the search results you're getting. So for example, we're seeing the FMLS number, the area, the listing office name, the selling office name, the age description, and we use that so we can break out new construction and under contract type, or under the other, I can't remember what they call it, new construction and something else. So we can break those out, the cost paid by seller. So all that stuff that we selected is all right in here. So the way that we get this from FMLS into our spreadsheet is if you'll look next to where you have 1 to 70 of 70 results. Checked right now is 0. Right next to that, you'll see something that's labeled all. Hopefully you see that if you're playing along, but we just click all, and that selects everything from our search results. Now, FMLS has a limit on the number of results that it will return, and it's 5,000. I don't think you want to be looking through 5,000 data points on a spreadsheet. But if you want to, you have the option to do that. So, but you'll see now all of a sudden it says 1 to 70 of 70. We have 70 checked. So that's just a good place to make sure that you've gotten all of the results checked and ready to go. So then once they're checked, if you look down here at the bottom along the green tabs here, one of your options is export. If you click that, it's going to take you to this next screen. And it basically is confirming that we want to export the file name. It's called stats because that's what we named our custom display. If I double click that down though, you can see I have the option of doing the export of stats too. I could export all the results of an agent single line. I could do also hot sheets and so forth and so on. But again, you want to make sure that you've got it. Whatever is in your drop-down menu there is what you named your custom display. Otherwise, the results that you're going to get in your Excel spreadsheet are not going to be what we took the time to go and create in the custom display. So this is just kind of like a checkpoint to make sure that you want to export the file format called stats, and then right next to it, you see export. When you click that, you're going to see in your downloads section here, if you're using Google, I'm not sure what other browsers, it probably would be the same, but you're going to see that it shows up down here in the bottom. Now, you can, if this is the first time you're doing this, you'll see this thing that says always open files of this type. If you'll select that, then the next time you do an export, it will automatically open up Excel for you. So we can click that, and then I'm just also going to open it because I need to open it for the first time. So when you open it, it should open up into Microsoft Excel and look similar to what you're seeing right now on your screen. I'm going to pause for a moment just to let people get caught up and get to this point in case anybody is doing this along with us. It might be helpful to know too, Emily, if anybody who's on the Zoom call is trying to follow along as I'm doing this, and if they are, I'm happy to kind of keep the pace down so they can follow along with us. So maybe put in the chat if anybody is trying to do this as they're watching.
Let's see, in the chat, we have, do you have a limit per month on how many to export?
No.
No. And then several following along, including me.
Okay.
Speed, and it seems like they are too. So I think we're good.
Okay. If I'm going too fast, just type in the chat, slow down, or Emily, you tell me to slow down, because this is where it's going to get, if you're familiar with Excel and how to do some simple calculations, then you'll be in good shape. If not, it's going to probably take a little bit of maneuvering around and practicing. And that's why I did this for 2 hours, so we could take as much time as we needed to answer questions that people have. So as you're looking at your Excel spreadsheet now, you'll notice that row 1 is a list of all of the search criteria that we put into that custom display in the order that we had it listed in that display. So that's why it was important to put it in that order, because if you don't have it in that order, as I get ready to start moving through this Excel spreadsheet, you're going to have to pair your column up to make sure you're working in the right column as the same column that I'm working in. And so you'll notice we have the FMLS, the area, the listing office, selling office. We have the property type, cost paid by seller, the total days on market, the closing price in column H, the list date, the list price, the original list price in column K, looking at my spreadsheet. We have the L column, which is really, it's a meaningless column. And the reason I put that there, you'll see in a moment. You have your square footage. The status, of course, is closed. If we were looking at active, if we were doing a search for, let's say we were looking at all of the active pendings and solds for Area 21 between 5 and 700, we could have combined all those search results, and then our you would have changed our status here from closed, and then you have the property address, the closing date, and so forth and so on. So the first thing we're going to do, at least this is the process that I like to go through to get all of the data that I share with y'all, is I need to find out what properties in this search result experienced a price reduction during the current FMLS listing number. So whatever happened while this first property was listed as FMLS number 6776838, I want to see, what happened during that listing term. So the way for me to do that is I'm going to subtract the list price, column J, which is what it was listed for before it sold, from the original list price, which is column K. So, yes. Yep. Okay, you probably then missed one of the going across. I have FMLS number, area. Yep. So if you put that in, or what you can do, Greg, and what you guys can do is if you just want to insert a column there, then you can do that and it'll shift everything else over, and then the rest of your columns will match up, because we're not going to do anything really with FMLS number.
Yeah, in my close price column, the close price to this price column is just $1.
That's fine. That will be column K for you right now.
Well, now it's L.
Now, okay, so you did an insert. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Are you okay over there? Got it? Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, and you could do this anywhere on this Excel spreadsheet. I just happen to like to do it next to the two columns that I'm going to be doing this mathematical equation in. I'm just going to highlight column L. As you can see, I've done. I right click and it opens up this little box. And there's probably a name for this box. I don't know what it would be called. But it's just where you can go in and select some things to do. And I'm going to insert. And once I've done that, it's inserting a column, a blank column in column L, and it's moved everything over to the right by one column. So what was our close price with all the dollars below it is now column M, and now column L is empty. It's blank. And the reason for that is I'm now going to put in a little calculation into the blank right below. So it's going to be the little L2 box. So right here, L2. So you see we're at L and 2. So L2, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in a simple calculation. And if you follow along on the other sheet that I sent, which is exporting stat results, basically here are your step-by-step directions on everything that I've covered up to this point. So as you can see, we've done a search, we've gotten the results, we've clicked my stats, I've clicked the all button to select all 325 records in this example. Then at the bottom, I click export. And then again, I'm making sure that my stats is selected for the file type. I click export again. And now we're here in this area where we are. And now I've gone in and I'm doing an insert into the column there. And now I've inserted a column. So the step-by-step directions are right there for you. So that brings us up to where we are now. So I want to put a little calculation in here, which is basically subtracting this column J from column K for all of these returned results. So to do that, I click the equal sign. Equal starts to create a calculation of some sort, depending on what else we put in behind it. It's basically this is what we're going to put in here is going to equal whatever I put in. And what I want to do is once I hit the equal sign, just move your mouse over and click the original list price K2 box. And as you see that, all of a sudden it put in K2 in blue letters in that little blank. So the equal sign is just on your, you would just put equal sign right there. Yep. Yeah, so you're gonna type the equal sign on your keyboard, which is typically next to your backspace on your keyboard. It's the plus and the equal, just make sure you did the equal. Then we're gonna click K2, and then I wanna subtract J2 from K2. So to do that in Excel, I just simply hit the minus button, which is next to your equal button. And then I'm going to click J2. So now if you're playing along at home, in that first box, you should have equals K2 minus J2. And then I just hit tab, which moves it over or just does the calculation for me. And you can see that 0 appeared. In a lot of cases, that will be the case because in this particular instance, there was no price reduction from the original list price. The original list price was $735 and the list price was $735 when it went under contract. So now what we're going to do is instead of having to do that 70 different times, we're going to copy and basically paste this same formula all the way through our spreadsheet. And this is where people kind of get tripped up a little bit because it takes a little practice to do. But hopefully you can see on your screen as you're watching, there's this little kind of square in the bottom right-hand corner of this field that has been selected. And if I put my mouse on it, you see how it goes from a big plus sign to just a little plus sign? That shows me that I'm on that thing, and I left click and hold it and drag down my spreadsheet. All we're doing is we're copying that formula. And then when I get to the bottom and I let go, it puts that calculation in on all of those lines for us. You'll have to watch the chat for me, Emily, to see if there's anybody who has questions about that.
Yep. So it says, Connie said that you were going in and out, but I think maybe it was because you stepped away to help Greg.
Okay. All right. So once we've done that, we can see here's all of our different price reductions or price increases. Well, it'll all be price reductions primarily unless somebody increased the new list price, which you see from time to time. But those are all of our price reductions. All right, we're going to do the same thing again in column M. And this is going to help us find out if anything's sold for above original asking price. So I'm going to highlight column M. I'm going to right click. I'm going to do another insert. So I can insert another column. And then I'm going to go to the top to the second row. I'm going to do the equal sign again. I'm going to select K2 because that's my original list price. And then I'm going to select H2, which is my closing price. First, I'm going to do the minus sign. So K2 minus, and then H2, and then I'm going to tab again. And then from there, I'm going to select the box. I'm going to get to that little small cross, and I'm going to drag it down my spreadsheet. So what this is showing us is how much below or above did the property actually sell for relative to the original list price. All right, everybody with me so far? So we've done our calculation. We've got this in here. Now we just need to figure out what are we going to do to sort this and organize it. After I do that, the first thing I do, just because I like to see what the total days on market is for the market in general, regardless of whether there was a price reduction or not, our column G is our total days on market column. So that's the number of days that each one of these properties was on the market. And so for me to find out what the average is, I'm going to select the empty box right below. So in this case, it's row 72, it's G72. I'm going to select that box. And then up in the top right-hand corner, I'm circling around it right now. You have something called auto sum. Next to that is a drop-down arrow. If you select that drop-down arrow, it's showing you a couple of basic calculations. And the one right below sum is called average. If I click that, it is going to give me, it's first going to highlight the entire column that I'm averaging. So in other words, it's averaging all the way from G2, which is the first row of my data, all the way down to G71. And from there, all I have to do is hit tab or enter, and it's going to give me an average for that data set. So the average total days on market in Area 21 over the last 90 days, priced 500 to 700, is basically about 50 days, 49.6 days. I just like to kind of have that as a rule of thumb and reference, and we do share that in the market updates. So just know that that's kind of the reference point for the whole market. It's about 50 days.
Todd, you have one question from Sherry.
Yep.
Can you repeat the column titles on column M?
So column N, they're unlabeled right now because I did not label them. So you'll see that they're blanks. So column M is the total difference in original list price and what it's sold for.
And so if it went for, actually, it's going to show, if it went for more than the original list price, it shows as a negative number.
Yes. So we're going to see that, check that out in just a second. So the positives, or the first one, for example, 35,000, that property closed for 35,000 below original list price of 735. It closed for 700, a $35,000 difference. In this case, positive is negative and negative is positive. So anytime that we see a negative number, that's actually a home that sold for above original list price. And I'm going to show you how to break that out very easily here in a moment. So what we're going to do is to separate the price reductions from the non-price reductions. Up in the top left-hand corner, you've kind of got this little arrow that's pointing diagonally down into the spreadsheet. If I click that, it highlights my entire worksheet for me without me having to do anything. Just click it, it'll highlight your entire worksheet. Once we have the entire worksheet highlighted or selected, we need to go up to the top, across the very top part. You see where it says Insert Page Layout Formulas. We want to click the Data tab. And that brings us up a new ribbon with new options to select from. Once I click the Data tab, I can go to Sort. It's kind of like almost in the middle. It's right over the middle of your actual spreadsheet with the data in it. If I click Sort, it's going to open up this box, this dialog box for me. And it's going to ask me, what do I want to sort this spreadsheet by? And in this case, I want to sort it by the column L that I put in here, which was how many homes had a price reduction during the listing period. Because remember, column L was the list price subtracted from the original list price. So I'm going to select column L, and I'm going to just leave it as the default at smallest to largest. And I click OK, and then all of a sudden, it's resorting my spreadsheet. So now you'll see that column L, the first one, my headings went down to the very bottom, first of all. Now, you can go in and you can freeze that pane if you want, and that's just up to you. but your column headings are now just shifted down to the bottom of your page, not to the top, because it's sorted by numbers first, and then it's going to sort by whatever else after that. So that's why all of a sudden my column identifier has disappeared, but it's at the bottom. It didn't go away. But as you'll see now, up until row 33, those are all of the properties that sold for, that there was no price reduction during the listing period, because everything in there is 0.
Todd,
Yes.
not to interrupt you, but a couple of things from the chat box.
Yep.
First, how do you freeze the headers?
So if we wanted to freeze the headers, it's in your directions on your exporting stats. There's under view, I'm looking at it right now. You can do a freeze panes, and it'll show you exactly how to freeze whatever sections you want to freeze so that your columns remain the same. I mean, your row remains the same across your first row. Was there another question, Emily?
Yes, a couple people a little bit lost, but I think maybe if you just do a recap of where you started on column G at the very bottom of your Excel sheet. I don't know if it's possible to do that.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning once we've got the data in here. And this is a handy little tool up here in the left-hand top left corner. It says undo insert cells. It will undo what we did pretty far back. Okay. So I'm undoing everything I just did. So now we're at the beginning. Okay. So real quick, the first thing I'm going to do, I want to insert a column here so I can do my calculation of the sales of price reductions. And so I'm going to do an equal sign. I'm going to select K2. I'm going to subtract J2 from K2. And that's going to give me my first formula, which I'm going to use and click and drag down to put that formula in there. I'm going to do the same thing again for column M. I'm going to insert a column. I'm going to go back up to the top. I'm going to see how many of these homes sold for more than original asking price. So again, I'm selecting the original list price. I'm subtracting the closing price. I'm tabbing. I'm getting that result. And then I'm going and I'm clicking and I'm dragging all the way down to the bottom. And that has given me all of those data points so far. If you'll just master that, the rest is going to be really, really easy. It's just learning those kind of basic things. So from there, I selected my entire worksheet by going up into the top left corner under where it says A35, and I just clicked, and it selected my entire workbook for me. If I didn't want to do it and I just wanted to click anywhere in the sheet, it would unselect whatever I've selected. So I'm going to go back again. I'm going to select the entire workbook. And now I want to do a sort. Normally, you'll be here on the home. It always defaults to home. So to get to the sort functions, first we have to select data. And then we select sort. And then it is going to ask us what we want to sort by. In this case, we want to sort by column L because I want to separate out the price reductions from the non-price reductions. So I select column L, and I'm just doing it smallest to largest. And it's giving me these results now. I didn't freeze my thing just because I'm not used to doing it. So it's going to float down here at the bottom. And once you kind of learn what these different columns are, which won't take you long, you just kind of know that you can just look at it and know that K is your original list price. J is what the list price was when it sold. H is your closing column. G is your days on market. F is your closing costs. O is your square footage, so forth and so on. I is your closing date, the date it actually closed. Okay. So now we're with the results. And I'm going to scroll down now, and anything that's a 0 or anything that would be a negative at this point would be something that the list price was actually higher than the original list price. If you saw a negative number up here, we're not seeing that right now, but I already see some negatives, which we can talk about in a second, for the homes that sold above asking price. So as I scroll down here, I go down to row 33, and I want to insert 2 rows here so I can do some additional calculations that are very much in line with what we have already done. So I'm going to highlight the row, and I'm going to do insert twice. So the first thing I want to find out is, since I know the G column is my total days on market, if you remember before, I'm just going to, like I did the very first time, I'm going to highlight the box directly below the last data point. And then I have to go back to the home button because that's where my auto sum is located. So we were here at sort. I've got to go back and click home and find my auto sum button, which is in the top right-hand corner. When I do that, I click the drop down. I want to find out what the average was for these total days on market. I simply select average. It's highlighted every single cell from G1 to G32, and I hit enter or tab. And that tells me that the total days on market for the homes priced correctly in Buckhead between 500 and 700 was not even 12 days. I saw some chat come through. What have we got, Emily?
No, I already had asked you about the one chat that had come through with how do you freeze the headers. And then someone else has a tip to share with you on the side.
Okay, good. The filtering, yeah. And if there's a better way, faster way to do this down the road, I'm all open. So I saw something about quick CMA too. Quick CMA, I mean, you can use it to do a CMA, but it's not going to give, this is the only way I know to go about getting the sale price, the price reduction and non-price reduction information out. And the only way that I know to effectively capture homes that have sold above asking price, which is why I don't use quick CMA. So the next thing we're going to do, again, along the same lines of averages, we're going to see what the average closing price was. So again, it's just the box next to it. We're already here. I'm going to hit auto sum average. So the average price for homes without a price reduction between 500 and 700 was $623,873. I want to go over to column K and do the same thing because that's the original list price. And I have to do this to get my data so I can do a sales price to original list price ratio. Same thing again, average. So it's 632,366. So now the next thing I need to do, and you can select any of these boxes. I just happen to select this one out of habit because it's close to the data point I need, is we're going to do some division. So you need to know how to use division in Excel to create this. And the way to do it is, again, you hit your equal sign because equal basically starts any formula. And then I want to divide H33 into K33. So I'm selecting H33. And the division, the way to do division in Excel is the backslash button, which is the same button as your question mark, which is right down next to your shift key. You'll just click that button. It gives you the slash mark. And then I want to select K and then tab or enter. Now it's defaulting to a date. I'm doing H33 and then the dividing sign by K33. And it's returned
In which block?
well, yours might be different because of this. So it doesn't matter. Just anywhere is fine. You can do it there. So you would just hit equal signs and then select that button. Or select the one right next to it there, and then hit the divide sign right there. go select. And I'll hit tab. Okay, if I went out away again, that's because I was helping somebody here. Okay, so it's defaulting to a date here, and we can quickly change that. Just select the box, and if you'll go up here and you see under date where it says date, there's a little percent sign. Just click percent, and it's going to convert it to a percentage. And if you want to get more particular and versus it rounding up, you can move it a decimal point over, which is what I typically do. And so the original list price to sales price ratio was 98.7% of asking price, which is why we go through that manual calculation like that. Now, in Quick CMA and also in Trend Graphics, you will have sale price to original list price ratio information, but it's going to be for the entire market. It's not going to be broken down by homes that had a price reduction versus homes that did not have a price reduction. And even though we're in a low inventory market, as you've been hearing, sellers still just really want to, in a lot of cases, grossly overprice their homes because they think they can get away with it. And this is a good way of showing them that that necessarily isn't the case, and it isn't true. Because we're going to look down at the second set of data points now, which is all of our price reductions. So from 35 on down to 72, those are all the homes that experienced a price reduction. So in order for me to do my calculations again, I'm going to insert a couple columns just to create some space. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did above for this set of data. So I'm going to come down to, again, right below column G, the first blank space is where I'm going to go in and I'm going to do an average. So I go up to my auto sum thing, click the down arrow, click average. And now you'll see it's selected. And this is another reason why I inserted those rows, is because it automatically stops where it senses a blank. If you don't have a blank underneath the G column, Greg, it's going to select the entire column. So that's why I put a couple of rows in there, so I don't have to worry about it going beyond my data set that I'm trying to do a calculation for. So if I click enter, I can see that the average total days on market for homes that had to do a price reduction was 81.5 days versus 12. So about 60 days longer, 2 months longer, 2 months more worth of carrying costs and everything else. And then I just find it easy because I'm doing averages already. And when I hit tab, it automatically takes me over to the H column where I want to do another average. So I just go up to my auto sum, down arrow, click average, and I do it again. So that's the average sale price, $597. So we already see that non-price reduction homes sold for more than the price reductions between 500 and 700. And then if I tab over one more or a couple more to column K is my original list price, remember? And so if I just highlight that column below, again, click average, I have that average. Then my column L is actually all of the price reduction amounts. So if I were to average that out as well, and I do that, it shows me that the average price reduction for those homes was about $35,000. And then again, like we did above, to do the sale price to original list price ratio, I just, again, select the one kind of diagonally down from the sale price, and I'll just hit enter. I'll select that result. I'll divide it, which is the question mark key next to your shift key, by that result, which was my average of original list price. Again, it's going to just default to the date. So I'm just going to go quickly up there, select it, and change it to a percentage and move the decimal over and get 91.2% of asking price. So 98.7 versus 91.2. So again, for those that kind of participated in the regional stats free-for-all, and I shared with you that little kind of simple 2-page sheet showing you the impacts of overpricing your home. This is exactly where you would get that information from. So if I price my home correctly, I'm going to get 98.7% of asking price, and it's going to be on the market for less than 12 days. If I don't price it correctly, I'm going to realize 91.2%, and it's going to be on the market for 82 days. And the average of those reductions is about $35,000 for homes priced between $500,000 and $700,000. Yes, the webinar is being recorded. Everything that is being spoken can be listened to again. And probably something that would be helpful to do, you know, as you're kind of walking through this process. Once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes very, very easy because it's the same, basically the same thing over and over and over. So now what we can do is let's take a look at the homes that sold for above asking price. How many of those are where? First, though, we can quickly do the math. Okay, so we had 32 homes that sold that didn't have a price reduction, and we had a total of 70 results, right? Our original results were 70 homes, and we had 38 have to do a price reduction. So we're over 50% already. We know that. So 38 divided by 70 is 54.3% of the market in Buckhead was overpriced for the last 90 days. That's how you would go about finding out what that number was. Again, it's just taking the, you know, we have 32 here. If you don't want to, sometimes when you have a lot of results, a little quick thing too, a little cheater thing is anywhere where you have a number. So like FMLS number here, the same way that you would use an average. If you look down, count numbers is the next one below. If I were to just click that, it's going to count the results of that. So that was 38 basic properties listed there. It's a quick way to count your rows. And again, as long as you have that opening above. So from here, let's go ahead and just see what, how many homes actually sold above asking price. And we did that through column M. So I'm just going to leave everything I've done here, my columns. It's going to jumble my numbers up a little bit. But I'm not going to go in and delete this stuff just because it's not necessary. And you'll see why in a second. But I'm going to go ahead and highlight my sheet again. And now this time I want to do a sort. So I got to go to data and go to sort. And I want to sort it by column M. And I want to sort it again, smallest to largest. So now what that shows me is everything in column M was the things that sold for above asking price. Now this is where it's helpful to know what the property type was. And if you look under column E, you see resale, 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 a fixer upper, under construction. You have all of these here. Now we could do a sort here as well, a secondary sort, and scrub it out, but I can see basically everything up to this point right here. So the first 9 results all sold for above asking original list price. And you see what the amounts were. Sometimes when they're new construction, you'll see that because they've gone in and they've done some upgrades and the builders had to go in and do some things. And so the final closing price is more than what was originally listed in FMLS as the list price. So it's not uncommon to see that with new construction, but I don't like to include that in that data because that happens all the time and isn't necessarily indicative of, you know, it being a competitive situation, maybe with multiple offers. But in this case, we had 9 homes, albeit one was only 500 more, but that probably was somebody coming in offering to pay right above list price. So we have 9 homes out of the 70 that sold for above asking price, which is 13% of the market. Now that's going to vary. Like if you look up in Forsyth and Fulton, it's a lot higher. It's like 35% of everything that's closing right now is selling for above asking price. But that's a quick way to find out that information too. And to see on average how much. So if we really, and look at the total days on market too, for those selling above asking price, we can quickly go in and see it's not even 3 days. Probably 2.1 days. So there's obviously probably multiple offer situation, which is why they sold for above asking price and weren't even on the market for a couple days. If I wanted to see what the average too of how much they sold above asking price was, I can just go in and quickly do the average, and it's about 17,000. And the reason I said don't worry about the other stuff is, see, all of my numbers and calculations down here at the bottom just shifted down because I wasn't sorting by anything in those rows where I did those calculations. So it's not going to skew any of my results from above. Another thing that you can do in here is determine how many of the homes did some type of seller concession, which again, we know is column F. So if I go in and again, if I highlight my entire sheet and I sort by column F, I did by E, not F. Sorry, y'all. So there's F. So again, anytime I see it's not zero, that means there was some type of closing costs paid for on behalf of the seller, at least recorded by FMLS. And so of the 70 homes that sold, 70 minus 15 is 55. 55 divided by 70 is 78.6% of all the homes that closed paid or did that had some form of seller contribution involved. And if I wanted to find out what that average was, I just again put an insert there. I can go down to the bottom here because I know F is my column, and I just go and do an average. And of the homes that did make a seller contribution, the average of those contributions was around $6,000, which tracks along with what I have said for a while, is that the average closing costs typically tend to be anywhere from the contributions tend to be anywhere from 1 to 1.5% of the sale price. And this would be 6%, or if our average was 623, then 6,000 is about 1%. And that's been running historically in Atlanta for a couple years, regardless of the market. So again, if you're going on a listing appointment, that's a good kind of thing to share with a seller, because I'm sure some of you at times have been like, gotten an offer and it comes in and the buyers ask for some kind of contributions from the seller, and the seller is like, what's this all about? Because it obviously impacts their net. So if you know going in that it's about 1% of asking price, you can prepare them for that and say about 80% of the time buyers are asking. Again, you're just kind of anticipating what might happen or come up down the line. And I guarantee you that most of the people that you're competing against aren't having those conversations. Let's see. I would love to learn about the macros. Absolutely. Thank you. Anything to save me time would be fantastic. All right. So I know that that was a lot of information to cover. But again, once you get in there and do it a couple times, and if you just use the handouts that I gave, it's pretty simple to go in and just do the simple stuff. You don't have to do all of that I just did. You can just pick and choose what you want to do. Any questions? Anything that you want me to go back over? And I'm going to quickly just jump into trend graphics real quick.
What was the first column you sorted by the very first?
So when we first got into our spreadsheet and we just had the raw data, we did an insert so we could figure out the price reductions from the non-price reductions. And we subtracted out, we subtracted J from K.
It was, there
All right. I don't see any questions in the chat, Emily. Is anybody that's got video raising their hand or trying to flag or anything?
No, the only thing I was going to say is you might repeat back Greg's question in case anybody on the.
Yeah, he was just asking what was the very, very first data that we did the calculation on, and it was to determine what the homes that had a price reduction versus those that didn't by inserting a column into column L, which is right next to column K, which is our original list price. Column J right next to it was the list price when it went under contract. So by subtracting J from K gives us those price reductions.
Great.
Now, here's the interesting thing too. We could do this. You'll notice that, well, let's see. Y'all just bear with me here for a second. So in some cases too, and this isn't something I have really looked at until now, you have a few situations where there was a price reduction. So for example, look at line 8. So they initially started at $699, did a reduction down to $679.9, and it actually sold for $687. So it sold for above asking price, but yet it didn't sell for what it was originally listed for. So that would have been another situation where you have it probably would have increased the number of homes that sold for above asking price because you're looking at what the asking price J was at the time that they got the offer. You can see it happen in a couple situations. It happened there. It happened at this property. It started at 515, went down to 499 and sold for 505. But the interesting thing is, if you'll notice that in no point in time after having done the price reduction, did it sell for above what they were originally asking for. So further evidence that maybe when they did that price reduction, they got right into the sweet spot. And also because of a little bit of inventory, they were able to sell it for a little bit more, but in no situation there, at least, did it sell for above original listing price. So again, more proof about how you can't just overprice it for the sake of overpricing it because there's limited supply. And that's especially, 21 has kind of, it's still a very robust market. Still 50 days, total days on market's not too bad. 12 and 82 is a pretty big difference. All right, so we've gone over this before, but I'll just do it again while I have everybody here. If you don't want to find out what the price reduction and non-price reduction information is, and you're not really interested in finding out how many homes sold for actually above asking price lately in a particular market, and you just want some quick down and dirty statistics that are at your fingertips, then this is a very good place, an easy place to go beyond what you might be doing in actual FMLS. And you have access to it through my H&R office by way of trend graphics. See, this is where it's challenging when you don't use your own computer and you have to remember passwords. Retrieve username, password. Well, that's. I was off by one letter. Okay, so everybody hopefully is familiar with my H&R Office. And if you look up right below the logo here, I guess they refer to this as the hamburger. Is that correct, Emily? Is that how you refer to it in your teachings?
You got that right.
The
Yeah.
hamburger. So I guess that's the bun, and then that's the burger, and is that the cheese? Because I see, unless it's a double stack. Is it a double stack hamburger? Is that what it is?
Looks like a single.
Looks like a single. Okay. So anyways, click the hamburger and then go on down to industry stats. And then when you click the drop down arrow, you're going to go to trend graphics. Now my thing is going to look a little different from yours just because I'm logged in as myself, but you'll have a thing that's basically called trend send is what you're going to see. And it's going to default to look like something like this. I just minimized that just to make it so everybody could kind of see a little bit better. And it just defaults to all FMLS counties combined. And it's just kind of showing you this is what's been going on in general in the overall market. So right now we can see that August compared to September, we're down about 4.7% in total inventory. The numbers that have sold month over month, independent, and so forth and so on. But again, let's leave the search parameters exactly the same as what we were looking at before. We're going to look at area 21. So I'm going to go select area 21. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to change my property type from all residential to single family residence. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to select a price range. And I'm just going to select it. And we were looking 500 to 700. Oops. And it's going to basically to 699, 999. And then if I scroll down here, I'm just going to leave this predefined date range the same. And I'm going to say show chart. And again, this is going to be for the whole market. So, and this is the search results right now. So from a month over month standpoint, again, from August to September, we won't have October's numbers until the 10th roughly of the month. So they should be coming out tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest. So this is a little bit of old data. We can look at some more recent trends down here, which I'll go over in a moment. But as you can see right now, there are 48 homes for sale. Compared to a year ago, our inventory is down about a third, 31.4%. But month over month, we added one additional listing, so not much of a significant change there. The number of properties that have sold from that time period, from September of last year to September of this year, down about 12%. But the good news is the pendings are up 24%, which is an indicator of what might happen in the future. So we got 26 properties under contract in September versus 21 from a year ago. Then if we look down here, we can kind of see what's been going on over this is going to capture the same time period for however many number of days for the last month to this month. So right now, as we're looking, we've had a few more properties come on the market in the first 7-8 days of November of 20 versus October. And then you're going to look at the same information on a year over year basis. So November of 20 compared to November of 19, we're basically flat in terms of the number of properties for sale. And then you have the closings and everything else. It's pretty early in the month to really kind of be worrying too much about these numbers. But if you look here, though, the data table, it normally defaults to not showing you all the information. If I click that, though, that's a little hyperlink, it's going to show me all this great information that's at your fingertips. So, for example, the first thing I always look at is what's our months of inventory situation. In September of 20, based on the number of closings that took place in the month of September, the month supply was 2.2 months of supply. If I want to compare to what that looked like Last year, I can scroll over and look, okay, September of 2019, we're at a 2.8 month supply. So again, a fewer months supply than we were a year ago, still though very much a seller's market. Anytime we're like below 5 or 6 months, definitely a seller's market. Based on the pended activity, again, we had good pendings going on. We're up 24%. We would anticipate that our months of inventory based on future closed sales is actually going to go down even below 2.2 because we're at a 1.8 month supply right now. A year ago, we were at a 3.3, which kind of tells you that things kind of slowed down going into October, which is what we typically experience, right? Because of seasonal things happening and Thanksgiving and the holidays coming up and everything else. So that trend line is not unexpected a year ago. And we keep talking about how it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the market as we go through the holidays. And I personally don't really believe that we're going to experience much of a slowdown. People aren't going to be traveling as much as they would be during the holidays, especially Thanksgiving. The inventory situation, everything else is, and the buyer demand is still good and interest rates are still good. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens. The next thing you have here is your absorption rate. In other words, at what rate is the market absorbing the inventory coming onto the market? And right now at 45.8%, the way that you can translate that is for about every 10 homes that come on the market, 5 sold last month. So half of, you're absorbing half of your inventory coming onto the market, and your absorption rate is obviously a little bit higher based on the pending activity that's going on. This gives you a great snapshot of what our average active price is at 626. If you remember, we were average for the non-price reduction sold at 623, and for the price reductions, it was in the high fives, 597. So that's kind of tracking, and then you can kind of see what your average price per square foot is. So this is a great place too if you kind of wanted to do on the back of an envelope type calculation, and you know the square footage of your home, not taking any other factors into consideration like number of bedrooms, baths, finished basement, unfinished basement, things of that nature, just true square footage. What's been going on as far as an average price per square foot goes. And it's kind of been a little bit all over the board, but it's been running in the high 280s, low 290s for 5 out of the last 6 months, really. We got all the way up to 310 in April. So you're running in the high 280s, 290s for the last 3 or 4 months. Your sold price, list price differential, that's going to include all of your inventory. So it's a pretty high number, even it's including your price reductions. The OLP to sales price ratio, a little bit lower at 93. If you remember in our calculations, again, we just looked at the last 90 days. The original list price to sell price ratio was basically 91.3 or 2, I think, and it was 98.7. And then you have your average days on market. Your total days on market includes withdrawns and expireds, as long as they've come back onto the market within I believe it's a 6-month period of time, if FMLS is still doing it that way. And then the other thing I like to take a look at real quick here is your median sold price. And the median is oftentimes a better indicator than averages because it scrubs out the fluctuations for selling more on a higher price point 1 month given another month. But as you tighten up your price range, you'll typically see not as many swings in that median. So right now you can kind of see what's been going on the last several months. Right around 600,000 has been the median, and kind of where it was last year. Kind of went up and down and then up, and then kind of was in the low 580s and then went up and down and so forth and so on. So it's just a good quick place to come and get some very easy data with just doing a few. What did we do? 3 clicks there. We selected area 21. We selected single family residence, and we typed in some pricing information, hit show chart, and it shows us all this information. If you wanted to kind of see too, if you click these, it'll change your graphs here and show you different information. So this shows you what the average price per square foot's been doing, days on market, so forth and so on. So
Todd, you do have one question in the chat. What about the percentage of non-FMLS homes that sold?
There is no way to get non-FMLS information other than the only way I would know to do it would be to use Realist and to search every single, and I really don't know of an easy way to do that, to be honest, to capture non-FMLS transactions. And honestly, for us as a company, Anywhere from sometimes 17 to 20% of all of our transactions don't actually go through the MLS, either MLSs. So we're not truly capturing all of that data. Good question though. What was your question, Greg?
You said click on something to get a further
Oh,
iteration.
so if you look across the top here, go up to the top, and you see you have your all different. Yeah. Yep. So a good quick place to look. And then one more place I'll show you if you want to get some quick data, and I've shared this before, so if you've seen it, then I apologize. But if you go back into Matrix and you look at, you go to public records, not stats, but public records, which kind of makes absolutely no sense to me, but that's where it is, market stats. It's going to probably ask me to re-sign in. I don't know why it does this. Let's see. Well, it doesn't want to work today, but if you click market stats, it's also a great place to go in and find some quick stuff too. And I like it because you can compare one zip code to another zip code. I hate that I can't show it to you right now. I don't know why it doesn't want to allow me to.
It's not opening on my end either.
It's not, it must be something that they are having problems with at FMLS. I was trying to click that thing real fast. It says redirect here. Let's see. Oh, let me see if I open it in a new window. Yeah, no, it's not working. But get in there and play around with it for a little bit. It can be helpful as well. So any questions? I know that was a lot of information all at one time. I'm happy to do another search real quick on any area that somebody might be interested in. It'll take about 5 minutes. If anybody wants something like that, if they're getting ready to go on a listing appointment or price of property and you want to know something about a particular area, happy to do it for you right now. And just so you can kind of see it for more practice as we run through. How soon can we get this webinar to watch again? As soon as Emily records it off the cloud and gets it into YouTube.
Sherry has said condo, so you could do condominium market, area 21.
Sure. What price, Sherry?
She doesn't have a price.
Okay, we'll just look at 21 then.
3 to
Condos.
5.
Condos only.
Yes, condos only. She says under 700.
All right. In 21. So again, we start with our search results. We're doing residential attached, condo, 21, 700. And we are going to do closed in the last 90 days. And we have 269 results. So we click results. Here are our results. Again, remember now, because I changed this to my stats versus whatever might be defaulting there. If you're doing this for the first time, you might be seeing something different. Just make sure you have it on my stats or whatever you named your custom display. We're going to take advantage of selecting the all so we can make sure we get them all. So now we got 269 checked of 269. Going to go down here to export. It's just going to confirm that I want to export this type of file, the stats file. I do. So I'm going to click export. Because I selected at the beginning there to open file types like this all the time, it automatically opened this up for me in Excel. So again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an insert into column L so I can do this calculation of the difference in original list price to list price, and then carry that calculation down. And somebody who joined our webinar is going to hopefully teach me a way to make this a lot faster, which I cannot wait for. So it made doing this today all much more worth the while for me. And we're going to do the same thing again so we can see if there's been any price homes selling for above asking price. So we're going to do subtract column H from column K to get that information, and then just do a quick copy and drag and paste of that formula down. Okay, so then we're just going to take a quick look and see what the average total days on market was. 54.3 days. Just so we can kind of see what the difference is between price reductions and non-price reductions. So then we're going to go get that information out. We're going to select our entire worksheet. We're going to click data and then sort. And we're just going to select column L because that's showing us our price reductions. So all the way up to row 166 is where there was some kind of price reduction of some sort. So I'm just going to insert some rows there so I can do some of these calculations. That's not right. $27 days. And now I'm just doing the original list price to sell price ratio by doing the calculations. I'm going to change that from a number or a date to a percentage. So 97.8% of asking price, average days on market 27 days versus those that had to do a price reduction. The average days on market 97.3. And again, we're using a pretty large data point with all below 700. So it's going to be a bigger swing. And it wouldn't surprise me if our average is higher down here because of the higher sale price, which is why they're price reductions. So we have 265 to 310. So the higher price you go up in the condo market in Buckhead right now, the more pressure you're feeling on pricing. Was be a takeaway I have from that. And then the average reductions are 19,162 and selling for 91.6% of asking price. And then we can quickly see how many homes we're selling above asking price, which there have been a couple. So 20 out of 269. Because again, remember, here are all of our price improvements compared to original list price. If we wanted to do it compared to just list price, we could do that with a different calculation. So did that help, Sherry? Okay. Would be happy to do something specific to the luxury market. I was clapping, but you couldn't hear me. I appreciate it. Sevilla, is there anything in particular that you would want to take a look at real quick in terms of an area or price point, like million and above? Is that what you're talking about? You can just type it in the chat there if you want. Trying to get a higher price point in my business and want to analyze the data. Well, do you have an area or a price point in mind? Or we can talk offline too, if you want. Okay. Well, if anybody else has any other questions, type it in the chat there. If not, I know, again, it was a lot of information in a pretty short period of time, but please feel free to go back and watch the webinar again and kind of follow along as you can. And again, I promise you, once you get used to kind of doing some of these calculations, and it'll come a lot faster and a lot easier. And if as you're doing it, if you have any questions as you're trying to figure out maybe why things aren't looking like they should, just send me an email or call me or text me, and I'll jump online and maybe we can do a Zoom together and we can share each other's screen and I can see what you're potentially doing. So you're welcome, Jeanette. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody. You have a great day. We'll see you soon. Take care. Emily, thanks for your help.
Todd. Of course. Thanks. Great job.